All right, this tree is a Ficus retusa, which is the most popular tree species used for beginners at bonsai, and mostly because you can keep this tree indoors.
This is what the tree looked like before it was styled. After pruning, wiring and repotting, this was the result.
I've had this tree for a few years and I think its age is about 12 years old. And so this is an imported tree from China. So what they do is they grow a really nice shaped trunk and let it extend out meters or many feet tall. Trunk chop it to a much more compact trunk line and then start building the branches. So it's a very fast way of developing a bonsai, and that results in relatively cheap trees. So for the last year and a half, I've put this tree in a large container, put a lot of fertilizer in and let it grow without pruning at all. So as you can see, there's a lot of long extensions now. The tree is very healthy, the color of the leaf is good. So it's ready to be styled today and to give it its shape as a bonsai. I think we'll prune about 50% of all the foliage today, which is okay since the tree is super healthy. And I won't be touching any of the roots, so no repotting, nothing like that, just pruning and wiring. And then the next step for the tree will be is that during this winter I'll keep it inside, keep it healthy, and come next spring or perhaps next fall, so 1 year from now, I might consider repotting it and putting it into a bonsai pot. All right, so the first step is to remove a few of these very long new branches that we won't need today. So this is one of them. So I'll just give it a spin around so that you can see the shape of the tree as it is now. And we'll continue with pruning some more branches and take it from there. As you can see maybe on the camera, if you prune a ficus, especially if you prune thicker branches, immediately it gives out like a milky sap which closes the wounds. So the ficus has a very natural way of closing the wounds of the branches. Which is convenient because we won't need any, we don't need to use any cut paste, for example. The tree will do that perfectly fine by itself.
Deciding on the design of a bonsai isn't always easy, especially when a tree is as full and overgrown as this plant. Try to apply the pruning guidelines we just mentioned to your own trees. And if you are interested to learn more about these techniques, consider enrolling in one of our online bonsai courses. Here, expert teachers explain the relevant techniques, and you can ask them questions. For a free lesson, go to bonsaiempire.com/courses.
All right, so my estimate was that I would remove about 50% of the foliage, and that's more or less what we took off so far. So the pruning up until this point was rather straightforward. We removed all the very long extending branches and made a few choices if there were two branches growing from the same part on the trunk. There's a small branch right here which is growing a little bit too low on the trunk, so I'll remove that as well. And then most of the work, the pruning work that we still need to do is right here in the apex of the tree. So not sure if you can see it well on video, but there's a lot of branches all growing from the same part on the trunk in all directions. And so for the view of the silhouette, it looks nice, but the structure of the tree, especially here in the apex, needs to be improved by making a bit of a selection in which branches to keep and which ones to remove. So for example, on this part of the trunk there's many branches growing, and this branch here is very straight, not very interesting, so this is one I will remove. And what that will do is also open up this space a little bit. There's one branch going that way, a branch going that way, and we'll remove this one. Alright, so I've finished most of the pruning, and the next step is wiring, bringing down some of these branches and to refine the silhouette of the tree. Now there's one very thick branch over here. This needs to come down quite a bit, so by just wrapping wire around it, that won't do it. So we'll need a guy wire to bring down this branch more or less to this position. Now the nice thing of working with ficus material is that these branches are, even though they're thick, and this branch is probably about 4 or 5 years old, but they can still be bent quite easily. Very different from working with junipers or pines, for example, which are a bit more stiff. But to use a guy wire on this branch, I have two options. One option, the easiest one, is to attach it to one of these roots, but the roots need to be strong enough. So I'm gonna try it, but if it's not strong enough, what I can also do is use a thick wire and bring it to the soil surface from underneath the pot. So just stick through the wire and then use that to attach this branch to. So that's going to be the first thing to do. So bringing down this branch, and then there's a few other ones which are a little bit smaller. We can just use wire and bring them down and see, we'll take it from there.
Try to select pairs of branches that are more or less of the same thickness, and wire these with one piece of wire. Start with wiring the main branches and slowly work your way up the tree. Smaller and thinner branches need a thinner wire as well.
Alright, so the first branches have been wired, all these lower branches, and put into position. As you could have seen, the main branch here we brought down using a guy wire. And while bending it, it actually snapped a little bit right here, which damaged, I think, about 1/3 of the bark around here. So 2/3 were intact and still fine, so this branch will be totally fine. Shouldn't be a problem. So this branch is done, lower branches are done, so we'll move up the tree and start wiring. There's a few last branches that need to be cut, so I'll do that and proceed the wiring all the way up until the apex. Alright, so finished wiring all the branches, which was necessary because we really want to change the shape of the tree. So most of the larger branches have been brought downwards a little bit. And the next step will be to set all the wired branches into position. So for now we just put wire around it and wired the entire tree. So the next step is setting all the branches in position. Now, as you can see, the shape of the trunk has a really nice S-curves, and that kind of image we want to see back also in the branches. So these little branches, we'll shape them by giving them slight curves, and what that will do is just give them a more natural look to the entire tree and a bit more aged. So I'm doing that throughout the entire tree, and that is pretty much all we'll do for today. Finished setting the branches, making small curves and setting them into position. So instead of growing upwards, all the branches are growing downwards and they got some shape. So only here in the apex, branches slowly are facing up again. And right now, the apex here, this will need to fill up a little bit more, so that will take half a year. So ideally the shape will be more like that. And the other main change will be this branch here. So the tree is quite full, but this branch still needs to fill up a bit, gain a bit more length, but mostly fill up. And then we have that really nice shaped bonsai. So it's fall right now. This tree will move indoors as of now, more or less. So during the winter I'll keep it a bit cooler, but lots of light, and make sure that there will be no frost at all. It's a subtropical tree species, so that's important. Next spring, we'll repot the tree, place it in a much smaller pot. You'll see that next. We'll trim some more branches then. But for now, the tree is ready. Moving inside during the winter, I'll continue to fertilize and make sure that it doesn't dry out. So basic bonsai care. And then in next spring, when we put it in a bonsai pot, it will look much nicer than this big training pot right now. All right, 6 months ago we styled the entire tree, pruned it and wired it, and ever since I've taken care of it, so fertilization, watering, and during the winter I kept it indoors in a not too warm environment. So today it's early spring and you can see that the tree starts to show a lot of new growth, especially in the areas where we pruned it most 6 months ago. So today, also because it's early spring, it's a good time to do a full repotting. And we'll place the tree in a much smaller bonsai container. Also, I'll remove the wire on all the branches to make sure that it doesn't damage the bark of the branches. Alright, some of the tools I'll use for repotting, of course, is substrate, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But for now, to take the tree out of its pot, I have a chopstick and a root rake. But since the tree wasn't attached with wire to the pot, I should be able to lift it out. All right, I think that's all the soil I'll take off for right now. The tree is in really good condition. You can tell by the long, fine roots and also by the growth, of course, in the tree. So the next step is to prune a few of the roots, and I'll also prepare the pot. So the pot that I have in mind is this one. A glazed blue pot, basically a cheap factory-made pot, but I think it's the right size for the tree. So let's see how that will look. And I'll prepare the pot by adding some mesh over the holes. Also, I prepared my soil mix. I used the standard soil mix for this tree that we always recommend, which is an inorganic soil mix. A substrate that contains akadama, pumice and lava rock in equal parts. So it's a very coarse material that really drains quite well.
Next, we prepare the pot by covering the drainage holes with a mesh. We also attached 2 long wires, which will be used to anchor the tree to the pot firmly. We add a layer of soil before placing the tree into the pot. Place the tree slightly off-center in the pot and make sure to plant it at the right angle. Using the 2 long wires, we firmly attach the tree to the pot.
All right, finished repotting the tree. It was a bit of a squeeze to get it into this small pot, but it worked out and I think it looks pretty nice. So the next thing to do is to water the tree, and then I'll start removing the wire as well. Not everything, but the bits that are about to grow in, I'll make sure to remove those wires as well. The tree is doing very well, so I'll do a bit of pruning, not much, but a few of these twigs I'll take out now. All right, so the next step is watering the tree, and also make sure to remove a bit of the wire. It's early spring, like I said earlier, so I'll place the tree back indoors until the weather here warms up enough for the tree to be placed outside during the spring and summer. But first, let's water it.
Learn how to create your own bonsai trees by enrolling in one of our online bonsai courses. We explain techniques like pruning, wiring and repotting, and you can ask questions to the teachers. For the curriculums and free lessons, go to bonsaiempire.com/courses.